In this video, we'll be talking about Hakon and exploring his journey throughout the game. As with all my videos on this game, a quick disclaimer that there will be spoilers in this one too, so you have been warned. A quick fun fact before we begin: many of you already know, but for those of you who don't, Hakon is modelled on the godfather of parkour, David Bell. Bell is considered by many to be the founder of parkour. Anyway, let's jump in. Pre-fall, Hakon was a soldier. He mentions to Aiden at the start of the game that he was in the military for 7 years, until he was blacklisted by the military for insubordination and had his bank account zeroed. After that, he worked as a taxi driver in Villedor. Despite his fall from grace, if you like, he was very thankful for it, as he says due to his work driving a cab, he got to know his way around Villedor very well. Hakon did in fact grow up in Villedor. In one particular part of the game, he mentions that him and his mates used to hang out in the metro tunnels. A self-confessed ladies' man, Hakon claims to have had many wives, but due to his womanizing ways, those marriages didn't last very long. At one point though, Hakon's second wife was carrying his child, and he had to take her to the hospital. She went into labour 3 months early, but sadly the baby couldn't be saved. This was bittersweet for Hakon, as he said he wouldn't have wanted his child to see the way the world had turned out. Hakon had a dream of leaving the city at some point and traversing the world outside of the city walls, known as the Outlands, and living by the ocean. There's a specific reason he wants to leave Villedor, but we will get to that. Post-fall, Hakon did what he could to survive. He ended up meeting a man named Frank Marway, who had set up an organisation called the Night Runners. I did a separate video on the Night Runners, but basically the Night Runners were a secretive and mysterious faction who came to the aid of survivors in Villedor at night time, a time of day when the infected ruled the city. They were successful in their work and gained a reputation around Villedor. They were fast, strong and very agile, and this was attributed to their use of inhibitors, a cocktail of antizin and a THV derivative. This would enhance their human capabilities, allowing them to traverse rooftops faster. Inhibitors were dangerous though, and only being suited for a certain blood type, and despite doing good things for the people of Villedor, the Night Runners were driven out of old Villedor by the military, who viewed them as junkies, and they later settled in the Central Loop. Hakon and the Night Runners, or rather Frank, would attempt to establish a community in the Central Loop and build a canteen called the Fisheye, complete with residences, trading posts and a bar in order for people to feel like part of a community again. It's at this point that Loan entered the picture. She struck up a particularly close friendship with Frank and eventually became romantically interested with Hakon. The two entered into a relationship. Hakon and Loan had a great relationship, at least at the start anyway. They actually shared an apartment together in one of the apartment complexes in the Central Loop. Everything was going well in their cozy little love den, with romantic poems and wine flowing. But all that was to become torn apart. Frank had planned a mission into the VNC Tower, a known volatile nest, in order to activate a transmitter which had been shut off years earlier by the military as a way of limiting knowledge of the extent of the virus outbreak inside Villedor to its citizens. Anyway, Hakon and fellow Night Runner Killian saw this as a suicide mission and got in Frank's face. As a result, Hakon and Killian left the Central Loop for old Villedor and didn't show up for the mission. Frank's Night Runners were decimated. I stated in a previous video that Loan put Hakon on a kill list. I stated that this wasn't only due to the fact that he left Loan, but it was also because Loan ignored the Night Runners and Hakon took away hope from the people and betrayed Frank. Well, it turns out that it goes even deeper than that. So I won't talk to you about Waltz too much, as I've already done that in a previous video, but those of you who played the game will know that Waltz's main goal in the game was his search for the GRE Key in order to get into X13. At the start of the game, Aiden receives the key from Dylan, who stole it from Waltz, and you'll remember that Dylan is viciously killed by Waltz. Well, prior to the moment Aiden receives it, this key had changed hands more times than an unwanted Christmas gift. The GRE Key was a unique piece of military and GRE tech, which was used to activate and deactivate certain security measures and fail-safes inside the city, one of which was the aforementioned X13. A facility designed as an ark to shelter the city's most important and rich figures, whilst it launched missiles into the city, levelling it and destroying all traces of the virus. That was the plan, anyway. In the game, we see how desperate Waltz is for this key, and we find out the reason and the driving force behind this motivation. Aiden's sister, who isn't really a sister, Mia, who is sick from the virus. Somehow Waltz has managed to keep her alive all these years and needs X13 in order to cure her, and to hell with the city. Initially, Waltz tasks a peacekeeper commander, Commander Lucas, to track down and find the key. In my Story Explained video, I mentioned that it's not clear if Commander Lucas refused to hand over the GRE key to Waltz or not. I can confirm after researching for this video that Commander Lucas did indeed refuse to hand over the key to Waltz, and this is where our boy Hakon enters the fray. You see, Hakon started hanging out with the Renegades at some point and was planning to spy on Waltz. This was until Waltz became suspicious of Hakon. As a result, Waltz threatened to kill Luan, knowing that Hakon loved her. In order to stop this from happening, Hakon made a deal with Waltz to protect her. This is the real reason for him leaving Luan. He was tasked to get the key from Commander Lucas by any means necessary. As we know from the game, Commander Lucas didn't go down without a fight. Hakon got the key but was injured by Commander Lucas's brass knuckles, the Lazarus. He obtained the GRE key and handed it to Waltz. Hakon had delivered his end of the deal and Luan, I guess, was safe. As we know and have already discussed in this video, Aiden arrives in Villedor and meets with Dylan, a former GRE doctor who has stolen the key from Waltz. He instructs Aiden to give it to Luan. Anyway, we know that Dylan dies and Aiden, after being bitten, makes his way into the Bazaar and the locals attempt to hang him as he's infected and not wearing a biomarker. He is saved by Hakon. Hakon initially saw Aiden, a pilgrim, as someone who could take him out of the city, which is a reasonable wish considering that he's wanted dead by Luan, and due to him being the real killer of Lucas, it was only a matter of time before the peacekeepers found out it was him. Now, given that Hakon believes his part in the pursuit of the GRE key is over, this explains Hakon's surprise when Aiden pulls out the GRE key here. During the peacekeeper path, if that's the one you took, Aiden gives Hakon the GRE key in order to open some barriers which closed on them after the Bazaar blew up the Peacekeeper's windmill. Well, Hakon doesn't come back. After escaping and talking to Hakon again, he says that he was attacked by people from the Bazaar. Whether or not you choose to believe that is completely up to you. Aiden eventually finds out the reason for Hakon wanting to leave the city so urgently, as after he is shot by Luan, he reveals an injury on his chest from the brass knuckles of Commander Lucas. Aiden can either ditch Hakon and leave him for dead, or he can go after the sniper. However you decide to deal with Hakon can dictate how he is towards Aiden at the end of the game, which we'll discuss now. Hakon eventually ends up back on Waltz's leash and is again trying to get the GRE key, to the point where Hakon fights Aiden for it. And as mentioned, Hakon's fate is decided by the player. Aiden can kill him by fighting him. If Aiden left Hakon for dead back in old Villedor, then he will have no choice but to kill Hakon, as there's no reasoning with him. If Aiden saved Hakon, then Aiden has 3 opportunities in either fighting or reasoning with Hakon. I guess this allows the player a hint that Hakon is needed alive in order to obtain a good ending with everyone and the city surviving. This way, when Luan offers to sacrifice herself at the end of the game, Hakon turns up and saves her after she sets the charges on the missiles. So Luan and the city are saved. If not, well, Luan dies and the city is saved, or Aiden can go save Luan but the missiles launch and destroy the city. Anyway, another possible addition to the ending is that if the city is destroyed and Hakon survives, then Hakon will leave with Aiden, I guess fulfilling his dream of going to live by the ocean. But that's basically it for this video. If you did enjoy this one, please leave a like on the video and comment your thoughts down below. Subscribe if you aren't already, but for now, take care and I'll see you in the next one.